In an exclusive interview, Raskoff said ending cooperative compensation would have impacts that extend to brokerage, franchisors, NARs, and MLSs. Raskoff predicts a couple of 100,000 agents could leave the industry if cooperative compensation goes away. Right now, buyers think that buyer agents are free, Raskoff said, and most would not be willing to pay 3% out of pocket. Oh, wow, that is a really interesting quote. He thinks that hundreds of thousands of agents could go away. If cooperative compensation were to go away or be diminished, either because of one of the class action lawsuits or the DOJ investigation, it would be a seismic impact on portals, buyer agency, NAR membership, MLS structures, agent count, and on the readership of the trade press that covers our industry. In other words, Inman. It would also impact franchisors and the brokerage model. I've been tracking these commission lawsuits and the DOJ investigation for a couple of years, and I'm glad the industry is now finally paying attention to what could be incredibly seismic event. They might try pivoting. I think this is really an interesting insight here, and this is actually something I've mentioned as well. They might try to pivot to a listing agent model, which would be prevalent outside of the United States, and particularly the United Kingdom and Australia, where buyers are unrepresented. There's only one agent in the transaction who typically charges 1 or 2%, and the portals monetize by charging listing agents to get higher rankings for their listings. So I actually mentioned this to you, in a video 3 or 4 weeks ago. What really would prevent me or any broker from going to someone's kitchen table and saying, hey, we're going to list your property in this hot seller's market, or even in a buyer's market, where sellers are under financial stress, and we're going to list it for 2%, let's just say. We're going to put it out in the MLS, and therefore it will be syndicated to Zillow. And when people want to see it, they'll come directly to me, and I will either do dual agency or the buyer will be unrepresented, one or the other, or either one of those situations with advance written consent in the case of dual agency, which is allowable in Massachusetts. And if a buyer's agent calls up, we'll say we're not offering commission because that's what will be listed, 0 for the buyer's agent. And if they want to get paid, they can ask their buyer to pay them. But basically, I'm selling the property for 2%. And yeah, I mean, why would I not do that? Of course I'm going to do that. And that's what they do in the United Kingdom. And bye-bye buyer agent, as is mentioned here. In fact, Zillow is already testing this situation. So if you're a buyer agent, if predominantly you don't get listings and predominantly you're representing buyers, you should be like, holy bleep, this is going to be a big change for me. And it will be. And basically, Raskoff is basically saying so many people will not be able to adjust to that. The time to adjust to that is now. Oh, Jack, how do I adjust to that? You put yourself in a position to get listing leads. Get listing leads, not buyer leads. Jack, how do I do that? You become, I think, the best path. And we're going to put out some content on this in the next month or maybe even sooner than that. You become, I think, the number one way to do this, the whole that's available in the media landscape is for news. News, whether it's local news or sports news or news in any particular niche, even, this video is kind of an example of that. There is a massive news hole for niches that are narrow, but like a mile deep. And I think if you can become the news source for the right niche that meets your market, you can do very well as a listing agent. And you really need to start thinking about that. If you're advertising for buyers right now, you continue to do that, you are going to be bleeped, most likely. From a strategic point of view, that's a bad place to be. it would be you might want to continue to do that for a little while, but I would start to work on 2 tracks and start to work exclusively building a community around, I don't care what it is, local sports, local news, maybe you're in Wyoming, so maybe it's like news about livestock. I don't know. Go to where your clients are. Start creating content about that. Like I always love that example of the law firm in New Jersey who wanted to reach more clients. So did they start a podcast about lawyers and lawsuits? No, they started a podcast about golf. That's what I'm talking about. Meet your clients where they are. Maybe it's fishing, right? We have who knows what it is? Maybe it's bicycling, working out. I don't know. But build a community around something that you all have a common interest in and get your seller leads from them. That's really what you need to be thinking about. Also, with this article here over at Real Estate News, there's another, I want to just bring this up here, kind of a thanks for being here, Tom. Tom Hurtlebrink, he's retiring. He is the president of the Northwest Multiple Listing Service. That might ring a bell to you because recently, and basically voluntarily, they put in a rule that said that cooperating commission was voluntary. It was no longer required, as it is here in most MLSs. And he's saying that the lawsuits could spur an industry-wide generational and tectonic shift. He's retiring. He's been there for 15 years. Having spent more than 3 decades in the industry, he offers a bird's-eye perspective. He expects MLS consolidation to continue and hopes the industry will be proactive in the face of buyer agency compensation lawsuits. You see, if there's a massive reduction in the number of agents, which, by the way, you might be scared about. think that's huge opportunity. But he's saying if there's a massive reduction in the number of agents, more MLSs might come by. All right, so he's basically recently retiring. Let's bring up his take on the commission lawsuits. They are known mostly as Moral, I think that's how I pronounce it, and Stitzer and Burnett. By the way, never trust my pronunciation on anything. The court cases could portend a generational and tectonic shift no matter what is decided. The focus on recent class action lawsuits and attention paid by federal regulators suggests the industry could do more to help consumers better understand how the transaction works. The industry could take responsibility and act now to influence its own direction. So many times, and I've seen this like at the State House when I used to work in the State House, when you have an industry that's under attack, it's much better to come out and say, okay, we're going to fix it. Here's our plan to fix it. And therefore, you're basically trying to put yourself in the position of solving the problem in a way that you can still control. Or you could just wait for the legislature, or in this case, the courts, to decide your fate for you. Right? You can either settle it and get ahead of it, or you can wait for the judge to decide. It's your choice. Obviously, it's better to settle it and get ahead of it. That's the better strategy. Consolidation and collaboration are the routes to the future. So if you're not getting ahead of it, the big lesson here from this MLS CEO who's retiring, or from Spencer, who's running, no longer he's founded Zillow, and now he's running some other businesses. He's basically saying the same thing. Get ahead of it. And if you're a rank and file agent, you want to get ahead of this. I'm not saying you want to drop everything that you're doing now, but you have to start to think about how am I going to command attention in the media landscape unlike I've never done before. There are going to be new winners. There are going to be new winners. The agents that win in your market just because they're shelling out a lot of money, they might still be able to shell out a lot of money in a different way, and you can't hope to compete against that? Probably not. Maybe you can. God bless you if you can. But there's going to be a whole mess of other people that can win because they've built a community around something, whatever that is. It's your job to figure out what that is. And that takes time. It doesn't take much money. In fact, it takes basically no money. All of these platforms, whether it's Substack or YouTube or Facebook, almost all of them are free anyways. It takes commitment to a topic and time. And now is the time, before this bleep hits the fan, now's the time to make that commitment.